burns. Well, everyone screams, burning their lives, burning my dreams. All of this hate and all of this pain, burn it all down as my anger rains till everything burns.
Okay, if you in any way like .hack or the content I presented thus far, buy this movie if you've not already. Funimation re-released it recently, and it is the only segment of the .hack series aside from Sign that is worth actually owning. Beyond the World would also join in it if it ever got an official Western release. And as I've gone over, Legend of the Twilight, Roots, and Returner are awful. I'll explain my dislike of Quantum soon enough, but suffice to say, this is worth your time. For Trilogy is one of a handful of video game movie adaptations that can legitimately claim to be a good one. The only other two I can name off the top of my head are Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, the movie version before they decided to turn that route into an anime TV series, and the live-action Phoenix Wright movie. And even those are subjective. Good is certainly in the minority here. I mean, let's face it, normally if you see a movie adaptation of a video game, the result is awful. Especially if it originates from the Hollywood movie machine. The Resident Evil movies, Tomb Raider, House of the Dead, Postal, Hitman, Max Payne, Need for Speed, Silent Hill, any Uwe Boll schlockfest. Oh god, I just realized a number of those are adaptations of Japanese material I'm going to have to review eventually. But yeah, the best you normally expect is enjoyably bad, such as the Mortal Kombat films, Super Mario Bros., yes I count it, and the Raul Julia Street Fighter movie.
Quick! Change the channel!
Or more commonly, animated features that are meant to serve as tie-ins, but are original stories, not adaptations. Zone of the Enders Idolo, Bayonetta Bloody Fate, Final Fantasy Advent Children, and the Fatal Fury films. Those have a better track record for appreciation, but are not what get people commonly shouting betrayal. When you take a story directly from a game and put it into movie form, there are very few that manage any form of success. Not helped that Trilogy, much like the rest of GU, was given very little support by Bandai of America. No advertisement, no popular retail release, nor was a dub forthcoming. Even the subtitles on the disc show how little effort there was actually put into doing right by it, as they are varying levels of inaccurate. And why do I keep running into this? This is the third movie I've reviewed within the last year, released by a professional company whose fan subs are of a higher quality. I really hope Funimation, when they licensed this, at least did some quality control double checks, as I expect better from a mainstream importer. And I won't be buying their release of the movie until someone can confirm they have. Though what kept me from purchasing it for the longest time was a lack of a dub. For as I've implied several times, GU's cast was perfect. Absolutely perfect. The fans would have loved One Last Outing, with them voicing the characters. I would have loved One Last Outing. Granted, this movie was imported in 2009, and you can date the actions that would eventually cause the downfall of Banter Entertainment to policies put in place as far back as 2005. This was simply just another casualty of that, not helped by the state of the economy at the time, which I hope will now get some better appreciation thanks to Funimation. And sadly, due to the formatting of the movie, such a dub would not have paid credit to many of their characters. However, even getting back Yuri Lowenthal, Bridget Hoffman, and Jameson Price would have cinched it for many of us because of that. And for a 90-minute film that's retelling and condensing 3 very story-dense games, I can understand that. You can't expect an ensemble to be that vast when faced with the need to sunder the story to the pivotal moments. Hell, that's why I didn't harp on GU Plus in the novelization for cutting down that stuff, unless they failed to compensate for its importance. In fact, once they get past the core parts of Rebirth, there's a notable divergence so as to focus on more critical parts of the story, thus cutting a lot of filler. Though it does once more show my condemnations of Roots are still valid criticisms, as it includes the few significant plot points from that anime, and yet continues the trend of all the GU material. They redo whatever is relevant to their story without any of the incompetence, and thus ignore Roots itself entirely. We open with Ovan over a comatose Aina, telling of how he'll bring about her awakening, his dialogue intercut with,
"Well, they're not wasting any time."
And honestly, this is a much better death for Shino than she had in Roots. The music actually complements and accents the scene. There's more emotion shown by Aseo in his panic that isn't repulsive due to the ugly art style, and seeming as he's actually taking some form of action as she degrades. It's syncing with the GU games and the echoes of Shino we saw from Alkaid's Loss. And we actually see Azure Kite at the scene and prominently behind her, explaining why Haseo would be so fooled into hunting him down, thinking he was Tri-Edge.
We're not even 3 minutes in, and this movie already wins in my book, becoming the only material to show and properly address Shino's in-game depth and its immediate impact and influence on Ryo Masaki, while alluding to the reason why Ovan would do everything he does. This is one of several things that really makes me want to give the movie unending praise for doing it right.
Haseo once more goes through the trials that earned himself the title Terror of Death, culminating in a reimagining of Rebirth's opening battle under Moonlight, that honestly feels like an amalgamation of both that battle and the War of the 100 Peak Haze, and is graphically stunning with the invoked symbolism of death flying by night to slaughter those unworthy of salvation, all along asking one simple question. This takes us to Makanu, with Sakaki espousing the plague of player killers that's befallen the world.
And seriously, I still can't believe no one has yet thought about a PvP toggle that gives consent for the practice. World of Warcraft had that on release!
But it of course segues to Adley first interacting with Haseo and the related mistaken identity that is more relatable by having Shino's loss seen first. And I really like how it's framed, with Adley being more at the center of the event, and Sakaki not at all dominating it.
Probably because Sakaki is not a prominent character past this scene. Bye, you terrible, terrible person, you! At least we're meant to hate him.
Haseo gets the email from Ovan that leads to their meeting, this time at Hulgrant to consolidate events, and for Ovan to lure Azure Kite there for the confrontation, while addressing the complicated relationship the two bear and the feelings of abandonment present. He enters, flashing back again to Shino's death and expanding on the scene further, and she knows. Her final words imply she grasps the reasons why Ovan did what he did to her, likewise giving Haseo a clue to the true culprit, which I interpret ends up forgotten simply due to Haseo too involved in the moment and not seeing the relevance, especially since the man went missing for half a year. The fight with Azure Kite, while shorter than the exchange in the game, is nonetheless better than Roots, and evokes a lot more action and energy, helped by the wider range of expression allowed by Haseo that is in more than just the eyes. Azure Kite data drains Haseo, the shot a lot more reminiscent of the original Kite's bracelet, leading to the character model derezzing, and taken in by Raven, while Ryo Masaki's consciousness recovers from the feedback.
However, there is an interesting detail integrated into this that addresses a plot hole. Why did Azure Kite use data drain on Haseo in the first place?
Some would say Azure Kite recognized the presence of the phase and mistook it for Ida, or the Herald AI's tampering in a needed process of the world, so took steps to fix it.
This movie, on the other hand,
shows that, well, Azure Kite missed his target, for Ovan was standing behind him. As Haseo laments his failure, he becomes aware of the Raven crew observing him, who all introduce themselves.
And why is Kun here? Don't get me wrong, I love Katsumi Tominari as a character. I love Johnny Yong Bosch voicing him in the English version, but he does nothing in the movie. The parts he'd be relevant for don't exist in this version's timeline, or are skipped over. There's no Canard, no conflict with Kestrel, no banter or battle with Endrance, no Ida server, and no Sakaki trying to twist the world and manipulate its inhabitants to fit his own agenda and worldview that would threaten the fun of the players he promotes. He really didn't need to be present here, and Yada could have been substituted into the proceedings, in all the scenes that he would be relevant for.
They explain about the Ida and epitaphs and Shino's condition, offering their assistance in exchange for his allegiance.
And you'll excuse me for skipping past this again, but this is the third time in a week I'm addressing this scene in some form.
As he learns of his power, that of Scathe, the scene is intercut with Haseo alone in the arena, fighting the other combatants, regaining one of his job extensions, and seeing a misty representation of the culminating power of his avatar born of his rage, only for it to vanish, and for him to lose against Alcade.
I actually really like this, and it makes sense. Alcade didn't cause Scathe's awakening. It was a whole exchange with Bordeaux, his feelings of failure and desire to win, which aren't being brought from this situation, especially without entrance. Plus, for Alcade fans, it's vindication for 1, getting screwed over against Haseo when he used Scathe on her, 2, her removal from the storyline via Ida-caused coma, and 3, her getting screwed over in the books.
In the wake of his loss, he encounters Adelie again, who asks to party with him and explore the world.
私、この前お会いしたとき、ハセオさんともっとお話ししたいって思ったんです。
お話？お前と？
辛そうな顔してるから。ハセオさん、辛そうな顔してるから。私にできることはないかって。
And he takes it badly, for after being alone for so long, her superficial similarity to Shino bringing up his long failures at trying to help her, and the former perception she's against what he does, yeah, he takes the wrong intent from it. But he acquiesces to do so anyways, which cuts us over to Ovan and a wall of footage of their interactions over what's implied to be some time.
And you couldn't just show us that? It would not have taken that long. Hell, you had to produce the scenes anyways for Yada to muse over them. This ends up becoming a big missed opportunity, which I will explain in a bit.
But the important thing to take away from it is Adelie's positive influence on him. That the moment which would bring the emotional zenith for the epitaph to emerge won't happen while they're interacting as they are, having fun, exploring the world, and healing the wounds left on their psyche through not keeping oneself isolated. There's no impetus for the needed psychological break, no inherent stress factor, and the routes to obtaining his goal are not in sight with which to drive him back into obsession. However, as he defeats another monster, Haseo laments that he's not strong enough, which prompts Adelie to ask what's the point of having power in an online game. But as he doesn't tell her of Shino, once more the mistake as he's not addressing the root that'd bring understanding, it leads her to the wrong conclusion, espousing as if there's no need, then why not appreciate what's around you? And of course, it invokes the expected reaction.
ばっかじゃねえのお前。こんなもの。こんなもんただのデータなんだよ。ポリゴンにテクスチャー貼っただけのただのフェイクなんだ。こんなハリボテ世界のどこが綺麗だって言うんだよ。
ハセオさん。
このザワールドで唯一リアルなのはな、プレイヤーだけなんだよ。より強くなって相手を打ち負かす。それが俺たちのつながり方なんだ。こいつはそういうルールなんだって。それが悪いのかよ。答えろよ。どこが悪いか言ってみろよ。
And unlike the games, keeping Shino to himself exasperated this far more immensely, and awareness of that similarity is what keeps setting him off, as if it's an affront, once more someone telling him to stop trying, but made worse as it's coming from someone that has the face he wants to see again, this timeline having led him to momentarily forget about her after he's failed once again, when she's counting on him. In High Brazil, Adelie encounters Ovan, telling of her own failures that are implied to go beyond Haseo, with him telling her how to get through to him, which then segues to Yada telling Haseo that Adelie has gone off the grid, and leading to the creator's room and the first part of the Spilling of Souls, though the dialogue is different than what you'd expect. Adelie is desperate to connect, and she saw the same sadness and loneliness in Haseo that she sees in herself. Now that she knows of Shino, she understands why he acts as he does, and that it's not fair to her.
私だってここにいます。いつだってここでハセオさんを見ています。だから笑ってください、ハセオさん。そして私を、世界を見てください。
And it begins to get through to him, purportedly based on the time together we're not allowed to see. Unfortunately, before he can begin to reciprocate, Azure Kite makes his appearance, quickly leading into the Avatar battle, and finally, Skaith summoning. Born of the frustrations of failure, rage at once more facing the one he thinks is responsible, and will to protect someone he's only just realizing the importance to himself. It runs a bit long, but it's pretty engaging, once more showing how strong this entity is, as the others watch on. As he begins to lose, however, he sees a vision of a Harvest Cleric, which one, Shino or Adderley, is intentionally left ambiguous, which grants him his second wind, and as a result, the win. Azure Kite falls apart, and nothing is gained again. Ida strikes, hypnotizing and attacking Adderley, and...
That has no place here. The reason it exists in the games was to be a symbol in the shifting change in the status quo from the wham moments that conclude the first two game storylines. This is a movie.
I mean, come on! It's not like you're waiting on the next disc, so you need to subdivide the story, as it continues on from there, with Adderley taken back to Raven so as to ascertain how to help her. The Ida isn't expressing itself externally, but devouring her from the inside out, submerging Adderley in her subconscious and assaulting her with every negative thought and memory she has ever experienced. The weight of the despair dragging her farther and farther down until she's simply being drowned in it. Outside, Haseo is begging Pai and Yara for any way to help her. It is his fault after all.
一つだけ。アトリと君の PC を共有化する。
How? This isn't exactly a thing in the series outside of the Avatar clashes, and even that is indistinct outside of the manga and the novelization. This isn't something that is ever established you can just do in the movie.
After having experienced every interpretation of Jiyu's story, I continue to have the interpretation that Tatsuya Hamazaki was not pleased with the final draft that went into the game's story, as the divergences keep happening once we get to Reminisce's events. They retain the main storyline elements about Adderley, yeah, but the scene and setup around it keep changing, as do the situations that allow Haseo and Adderley to bridge the connections between them to expose the ugliness in her life to him.
And I still think the only entry that really needed any changes was Redemption. Not any of the mainline events, but the secondary character stuff that does not see proper resolution when it had continued to progress through the end of Reminisce.
But because they're less narratively justified, and the Mind's Elf Pai and Yara put in place is a bit baffling, but does allow him to experience, well, Adderley's truth that he had only just begun to gain insight to.
私、頑張ったよ。一生懸命頑張ったんだよ。でもね、ダメなの。どうしてもダメだったの。頑張っても頑張っても、みんなで私を否定して。
And finally, that pain leads her to be consumed by her own self-loathing that seeks an outlet.
本当の私を否定する。
Well then, Adderley just became a witch. Where's the nearest magical girl division?
Honestly though, this is the moment that makes the movie for me. Instead of seeing this lament of her total loneliness through the lens of a fractured soul trying to keep itself together, it's the tear-streaked lashing out of someone who's at wit's end, after they were forcibly submerged in every moment of their lives that brings them sorrow.
私を利用して私のせいにして私から全部奪って なんてただの嘘。
The anger, instead of being goaded, is there as a defense mechanism against those who've hurt her. And the one that stands there just perceived as the newest in a long line of people who hurt her with their actions, and don't even care that they do.
And if I was put up against a wall and asked if there was one thing I would change from Reminisce, my favorite segment of my favorite games, it would be the slap that shocked Adelie out of her self-loathing.
While I do feel it was necessary in the set-up story, the problem with that moment ends up becoming context. It is so easy for someone looking to ridicule the game to single that out. Not as a moment that would get her to listen to both others and herself, so she can begin working to get over her problems and become a better person through the support of others, but just seeing an asshole beating up on an already abused and traumatized and betrayed figure that's had her demons dug out of her and exposed to bring further humiliation to her. Which it is not in any way.
This is, of course, assuming you don't hate Adelie for some absurd reason, such as sinking a ship or finding her annoying on initial viewing of the early games, and not paying attention to how she develops away from that.
Trying to get an explanation of why the entire Moontree incident is a big boon to the storyline, and why it affects me so, took as long as it did to write the rest of the review of that entry. It was that important to me to correctly relate the nuance of why it's so meaningful.
And I still don't feel I did it justice. So how? Without Moontree, without Takaki, without the time we've spent connecting with her, could they possibly do the same? By doing what the games could not. And that is showing unconditional acceptance.
私はここにいるの。いつだってここにいたの。でも誰も私を探そうとさえしなかった。私はここにいるのに。
俺もここにいる。
嘘つき！
嘘じゃない嘘じゃないアトリ
Acceptance can save a life. It can let people consumed by negativity to push it away, and deal with it knowing they have the support of those around them. And sometimes, the simplest gestures of comfort can mean magnitudes. The moment that follows that is of Haseo and Adelie talking to each other, while remaining embraced in the other's arms, as Lyre's smile plays over their talking. I've taken the interpretation that this is them pouring their hearts out to the other, boundaries forgotten, informed by the trend with the Avatar battles of bringing to the fore some aspect of themselves, especially in the novelization in GU+, where they actually experience the memories of the other, and with them passing through that realm of memories, what is driving them back up out of this place being positive experiences related, or the trust imparted by sharing this with the other. Their expression slowly changing over time from somber uncertainty and hesitance over the sequence to contentment in the other's arms.
俺も
私も
ここにいる
Brilliant. Just brilliant. Especially if you're like me and remember You Were Smiling Softly, the song that concludes the main storyline of the series, and Haseo choosing to move on and go after Adelie. The song representing the joy that is brought to the singer simply from the memory of that moment. Lyre's Smile as a song is capturing much of the same emotion invoked by it, but more as a counterpointed song to such, with it relating the singer finding true happiness after their sorrow and loneliness is exposed, no longer needing to hide it all behind a facade. And it is beautiful.
However, they botched establishing and showcasing the relationship between them as they skipped past their early adventures, going from restrained hostility to someone reaching out, to Yada just noting, yep, Adelaide's a positive and calming influence on Haseo. Neat. And then to hostile again.
Yeah, due to not showcasing that, these actions by them have a lot shallower motivations behind them, appearing to be based on superficial elements instead of a longer period of them interacting, forging a bond that would result in this. Haseo's hugging of Adelaide to comfort her, while fans wish to see, falters narratively as we've only seen him be mostly hostile or indifferent to her in this movie. The softening and mutual appreciation of the other skipped over. So the empathy he's showing isn't fully connecting unless you're inserting the knowledge you have of them from the games.
This is really the only point that is detrimental to the movie in isolation to the rest of the series. As personally, I feel this sequence and several other scenes in the movie could have been shortened.
Mainly because it takes 15 minutes, a sixth of the movie, before we even get through the first fight with Tri-Edge. Trilogy also has pacing problems.
So they could better showcase the sequence that follows Adelaide coming to Haseo after his loss to Alcade, shown more of their questing and adventuring before Yada's observation of this potentially botching Ovan's plan. Allow us to see them having more fun, maybe the two smiling in the other's presence, how their connection forms in this iteration of events that is skipped over to culminate in the argument about the nature of the world. Done correctly, it could have shown them in a lot more varying locations that just get skipped past.
Admittedly, yet another montage on top of the one that was intercut with Yada and Pai's explanation of Raven, the epitaphs in Ida, might not have gone over so well. But the film is ultimately weaker by not appropriately establishing one of the big relationships of the series, which is needed for this scene to work to its full potential.
Even if you don't ship the two, their interaction along with that of everyone else is a big part of what makes GU so wonderful, as those dynamics change and evolve as everyone matures.
Grow up is the arc phrase inherent symbolism and themology of the series, after all. So cutting down to who is critical means you needed to be able to give time to this, even if it means reserving a minute or two of the runtime. I do hope you all see where I'm coming from with this.
Most video game adaptations don't know what to cut or keep to retain the integrity of the work, often because they don't intend to do right by such.
And Trilogy's production staff did know what was important, but didn't necessarily recognize everything needed to justify the moment and how to fit it all in. Screwing up getting to this part doesn't ruin it, it just makes it far less accessible to a non-fan, which in a video game movie adaptation should try to be continenced.
So eventually, they emerge, Adelaide free of Ida and Megan Fee, having been transported there after they were made contact, only to find the handiwork of Tri-Edge around them, Kun and Pai having followed after them, and thus been sliced to pieces, with Ovan standing there.
And, well, you know what I said about the movie having pacing issues? This is about 52 minutes into a 90-minute film. Yeah, they totally could have spent a few minutes on better building Haseo and Adelaide's relationship.
And thus, Ovan reveals his truth, shocking Haseo to the point that he can't even move. But someone does. And now Haseo has lost one more person he's realized he loves to the monster he hunts. And the revelation and loss as depicted here breaks him in a way nothing else in the series has. For after that, Adley has touched his heart deeper than Shino did.
And thus, there is nothing to stop the terror of death from tearing the system apart in his mindless rage.
As Ovan retreats into the creator's room, where Ina's PC remains motionless, he tells of the being that will save her, while flashing back to the events of the loss, only for the room to be sundered by the entrance of the Beast of the Apocalypse.
I used that title to describe Ashura's uber rage form back when I reviewed Ashura's Wrath, as it's kind of the same concept. A deep personal loss felt by someone with untapped power devouring them and leaving them a husk solely bent on vengeance for such. It's the second title given to this aberrant evolution to Haseo's third form, called Beast Form, that's exclusive to this movie, and heck, Link. Link is actually having it as a different character from Haseo.
But this demon of rage, despite unleashing the unlimited blade works, is still no match for Ovan and Triage's power, despite the lengthy exchange between the two that slowly takes its toll on Haseo, as the Ida Epitaph PC continues to counter his speed and tenacity, for while wild, he stands no chance. It's ironic. The salvation Ovan sought is now lost, as the one necessary to kill the rebirth no longer has the sanity in his grief to be able to counter, solely due to the actions he has performed. So all that's left is to let Haseo be consumed by the flames born of his own hatred.
ハセオさん
The view shifts to what I think is within Ryo Masaki's own soul, burned to the ground in his rage, and bound to a melting pillar by the chains of his life, his duty to Shino, his responsibilities, his failure. Everything he heaps on himself to do by no one's will but his own that's crushed him until he can't take it anymore. And in comes Adley, returning the favor of rescuing her from herself with outstretched hands, and offers the same in return.
悲しまないでなんて言いません苦しまないでなんて言いませんあなたが抱えているものを私は知っているからでももう自分のこと許してあげてもいいんじゃないですか
結果が変わらなきゃ頑張ったって
An angel that redeems a demon and brings about his salvation, returning to the being he was meant to be, and at last understanding Shino's final words.
行きましょうハセオさん
あ行こう一緒に
And thus, the Xth form is born once more.
俺はあんたを助けたい俺はもう死の恐怖にはならないいけ
This, of course, transitions to the expected Avatar brawl, which... it's okay. Though Korvanik changing to have the Ida canon out of nowhere is head-scratching, but the expanded dance of avatars is nicely reminiscent of Innis vs. Scathe.
Which I still think is a better battle overall.
Until Ovan opens his guard and lets the final strike hit, at last bringing his torment to an end.
そうしたら迎えに行こうって
I think this is once more a contact of avatars, allowing them to witness each other's memories, as tried to be depicted a few times.
And I feel it works a bit better here, as it's more obvious from dialogue and character action that he witnesses snippets of Ovan's memory. Ovan explaining about Ida's parasitic nature, that is honestly one of the clearest explanations we get for that element of the entity, and what he needed to do to get rid of it. The rebirth begins, again, Ovan setting it free and pushing Haseo away as it cascades and purifies the system and sets all of the lost ones free. Haseo awakens in Megan Fee, the motes of light from the rebirth the only signs of Ovan's lost existence. But there is one other major divergence, which is shown as Haseo laments his newest loss, and how unsatisfying this end is.
せっかく意識が戻ったってそこに大事な人がいなかったらそんなの悲しいだけだろそんな結末絶対に納得できないだから
迎えに行ってあげてください
For unlike the games where he was in no shape to try and go after him, he's more than capable right now, and reinforced by Adelie manifesting Innis, Haseo gains his wings and dives into the core of the world to drag Ovan back.
However, the core of the world isn't ready to allow him to leave.
罪には罰を奇跡には対価をそれはこの世界の根源
Yeah, Aura does not want Ovan to be set free for what he's done.
Problem with that is, aside from Azure Kite, you really didn't do anything to try and stop this whole event, Aura. Hell, Ida was born from the programs you stopped managing. So, punishing the guy at the core of this, that was just as much a victim as everyone else, when you were completely unhelpful at stopping this, and his actions did in fact cause it to end, well, it helps inform why I think there was more that causes an upcoming event in Link than a certain virus.
But yeah, Haseo bashes down the barrier and passes on the wishes of the world, getting a quick passing glance at the game series' entire cast, before focusing on Aina, which wakes Ovan up, and allows Haseo to save him as well. A month passes, recentering on Adelie as she goes to meet Haseo in Hul Grans.
遅えよ
ごめんなさいちょっといろいろあって怒ってます
別になんか夢だったみたいだ
ですねでもあれは
現実だ
And on a nice twist on Redemption's ending, Adelie calls Shino there, who thanks him for everything he's done, before saying her own farewells.
ハセオのことよろしくねはい
She leaves, and as the doors close, the lonely boy and the lonely girl's hands meet, an expression of the connection they forged. While elsewhere in the world, Aina meets with the recovered Ovan. Though in a post-credit stinger, all is not well, as Reiko Saeki is contacted by a person concerning a group known as Shixel, an allusion for the Game.Hack Link, which followed the GU series.
I love this movie. I think it's a great video game adaptation, but objectively, it leaves something to be desired to warrant being called a great film overall. I still find it good, but if you don't know stuff from the source material, you're going to get lost.
I mean, let's face it. The bar for video game movies is so low that even this flawed film is a contender for one of the best, as it does get the core elements from the GU games right. You're able to connect with Haseo and Adelie, understand what they've gone through, and it does work to giving them moving forwards and out of the ruts that kept them from changing. Ovan's backstory allows you to sympathize and understand him. Where it fails is sadly once more the cohesion of events, a problem with all of the material adapting GU's story. It rushes through what should have been the establishment early on to get to the second and third acts, where pacing drops immensely for the action scenes. I really feel fixing the showcasing of the pair's early interactions, as I addressed, is all that's really needed to bring the film up the tier and quality needed to make it readily accessible to non-fans, more understandable and not reliant on knowledge from the games. Another significant critique is a number of Haseo's expressions and the action lines around his fighting are just plain comically bad. This had been something brought over from the Naruto fighting games CyberConnect had made, and one of a number of reasons I disliked them. They're why many things started to become extreme in stylization, and finally became out of place and ludicrous at the point of this movie's make, such imagery working against the tone or going too far, making several scenes that were pivotal in the games less effective because this depiction is overstressing the wrong elements. Ashura's Wrath has much the same issue at points, and yet it was more restrained as they had realized by that point what they were doing and dialed it back. It's a major critique for me, as beyond that, the artwork and modeling for the rest of the film is beautiful. One of the best CGI movies I've seen, especially for its time, as the movie was released in 2008. But whenever it comes up, it's just so ridiculously jarring. As for character cameos, most of them are handled pretty well, but Kun is really the only one that serves no point in this iteration of events. The others having their spotlight and then just moving on. More there for fans that catch the relevance.
But yeah, I do think this movie ultimately works. Why? Simplifying things down, Rebirth is about Haseo and laying the groundwork. Reminisce is about Adelie and personal revelation, and Redemption is about Ovan and resolution. Trilogy works as it addresses their three stories, and bridges the story arcs closely reflective of related events, but diverges just enough that it makes you wish some of those moments were part of the games.
I like the scene where Haseo gets Adelie to own up to her actions, those that are really hers to bear, but I also wish he could have been the one to break through to her by showing comfort and that he cares. I love that Kun shows Haseo the cost of acting recklessly, that attacking without care and consumed by anger and your own pain will lead to one's own self-destruction and unintended consequences. But I also want to see Adelie taming the beast within his soul so he can move beyond it. I feel Ovan's penance for his part in the Ida incident was needed for everyone to move past the actions he commits. But I also wanted Haseo to strive to save him, not wait it out without any idea how long the time would be, but be the one that forges the miracle himself. And this movie gives those moments to me, and other fans of the series, that allows us to appreciate it more in relation to and in isolation of its source material. The changes are not detriments. It's more of how they are showcased that's the problem.
And the ship confirming totally helps if your headcanon is Ryo and Chigusa got together. So, yeah, Funimation's release, buy it. It's not a perfect replacement for the games themselves, but bar watching the 20 related videos I've made on it, saving up to get the expensive physical copies, finding the ROM files to emulate, or the off chance that CyberConnect finally releases an HD or digital download version of the series, this is the best you are going to get.
I've been following Hiroshi Matsuyama's Twitter for some time, and it is made pretty clear that I am far from the only one that wants a re-release of this series in some form. I just wish they'd be able to get to it sooner, rather than later.
And that ends the entirety of the .hack GU reviews. And while the expanded material didn't measure up, I still enjoy it. Bar Roots, of course. I love experiencing the stories of these characters, so I doubt I'll be getting rid of any of these anytime soon. There are 3 entries, technically 4, still left for me to address before I finish this retrospective of the entirety of the .hack franchise. And I'll be back after Ryuki is done with to talk about the PSP game that was never imported. So, I need to figure out how I'm going to do that one. Crap.
人の波押し寄せては私をかすめ通り過ぎるいつだってここにいるのになんだか抜け殻ただ眺めてぽつりたたずむ孤独の破片